Welcome to the Expo Audio Insider Podcast. My name is Lenny Florentine, and I don't know what's going on the other screen right now, but there's a ladder. I'm supposed to have Steve from 16 Works here. Steve, are you there?
Hey, Lenny.
What's up, man? What do we got going on here? This is
we
not how
we
I
are
expected.
we are literally up right now. Hope you can see all of me in this picture. So good to meet you. And I noticed you have great podcasts, and I've noticed that not enough people bring props to your podcast. So today I brought a whole bunch of props. So I hope we. Oh,
No.
here we go.
All right, you're back. See, we didn't know what to expect, but hey, because you don't make things that hold cameras onto the walls. You make things that apparently hold subwoofers onto the walls.
Yeah. Me and camera mounts were not as experienced, but subwoofer mounts, I'm your guy. So thank you very much for having me today, Lenny. So yeah, my name is Steven. I maybe someday we'll be able to say that 16 Works was founded by a former Apple engineer, but today I am still an Apple engineer. But I have a passion for audio that's lasted my whole life, my whole adult life, and I'm excited to be with you today to tell you about 16 Works and what we do and why.
Well, you're an Apple engineer?
Yes, I am. I'm a software engineer by trade.
Wow. And just an audiophile as well. How did you get into becoming an audiophile? You've been an audiophile for a long time, and what kind of got you into it?
Yeah, my whole life. So like everybody, love music. And when I was I was born and raised in Madison, Wisconsin, and there's a great audio shop in Madison called University Audio. And I bought my first system from there, very kind of traditional amplifier preamp setup with some good cables from Terra Labs and old school digital setup, a CD and a DAC back in the day when there was no streaming, and a great pair of Paradigm speakers. So it was a little bit aspirational system for me. In fact, I became good friends with the owner of the shop at the time and the team. His name was Joe Dean, the owner at that time, and it's now owned by Ben Gottlieb, and still great friends with Bren. And I did also have another short stint in the audio industry. I was working for some time overseas, and I supported companies like Denon and Audio Technica during part of my professional career journey. A little bit on the product side, not specifically to sound engineering, more on marketing and other things. So, but I'm a lifelong audiophile. I loved everything about two-channel, and I came across an experience where, well, I ended up with a pair of mini monitors, to tell you the truth, and of course they didn't have great bass, and I never had a sub before that. Added a sub to try to get deeper bass, but struggled with coherence. We've all kind of been there from the two-channel world. And anyway, went down the rabbit hole a little bit, found some great research had been done into human perception of sound and room acoustics, and figured out, oh, that's why there's a phase switch on the back of a sub and other things. And long story short, it led me to understand the conclusion of all this research, which is that multiple subs really solve a lot of room problems. And almost all of what we hear in the low frequency range is actually the room. When you hear sound waves coming out of a subwoofer, they're not hitting you directly. They're hearing you after they bounce off a wall. And I think as audiophiles, we all kind of know that, but it's challenging. It's a challenge that hadn't really been approached before from an audio furniture perspective. So what 16 Works does is we build high-end audio furniture systems to elevate subs, because your room is 3 dimensions, both a width, height, and a length. And it's important to address all 3 dimensions with regards to low frequency sound. And that's what we do.
So with just one day, you're looking up at the ceiling, you're like, I mean, you're an engineer, so this is not probably how it went for you, but I'm just imagining one day you're like, maybe it should go up there.
Actually, no. So to name drop a few of the people that have done really great work in this space. So Dr. Earl Geddes is really a pioneer in some of the research that was done on this kind of low frequency room response. back even dating back 20, 30 years ago. Floyd Toole is also someone who's well known in our industry and has done, really substantial research again into how humans perceive sound, especially low frequency sound, and how the room basically dictates what happens, assuming the room is small. Obviously in an auditorium that's, hundreds of feet long or hundreds of feet wide, you're dealing with a space that the sound waves fit into, so to speak. But in the rooms that we have in our homes, the sound waves, at 20, 30, 40 feet long in a low frequency region, they're bigger than the rooms that we're in. And so we're only hearing the reflections. And that's what Dr. Toole explained. There was a whole body of research that he supported at Harman. There was a really great paper that was published by Harman that talks about how to implement multiple subs. One of the limitations of the research was that at the time, there was no practical way to address subwoofer height. And it was actually acknowledged by the writer of that paper. There's a great YouTube video. I can show it to you later. It says that, he hypothesized that maybe height would certainly impact the sound of low frequency in a room, but, they weren't able to test it because they knew that none of their customers could really implement it. So myself, the way I did it,
thought about this.
Yeah,
I never thought about this one time.
I had never thought about it either the first time I did it. The approach, again, I was really frustrated with the sound that I was getting from a single sub. And, I learned what the phase switch was for. So basically, when you flip the phase switch, basically around the room, there are dead spots. There are nulls. There are places where wherever you are in the room, there are different low frequencies that are canceled out based on how they're reflecting off the boundaries. And when you flip the phase switch, all that you do is change which frequencies are canceled. So when we prefer the phase switch on our subwoofers at 0 or 180, we're just preferring to have either X low frequencies canceled or Y low frequencies canceled. And if X low frequencies are deeper, then we'll say, hey, it sounds better when the phase is at 0. And anyway, so again, Dr. Geddes is really kind of the one person who's done significant thought into having subs elevated. And I decided to do it myself after watching some discussions around his approach and reading some of his papers. And I bought some wire utility racks that you might have in a garage. And I placed the subs kind of the way he described it, which, by the way, is asymmetrically. It's also a very different approach from how we think about stereo. Though there are companies like Trinov, maybe you've heard about Trinov before. They're kind of a pioneer in what's called waveforming, or a DSP-based approach to handling room modes, or again, the standing wave or nulls, this bass cancellation problem that we're talking about. And Trinov also, in fact, their setup requires that the subs be elevated. Now, this is usually a CI discussion, but for a lot of people, CI is, a big jump. And one of the really highlights, I would say one of the tent poles that I had when I started this project on my own, again, the first time I did it for myself was I elevated them on wire racks. It wasn't pretty. But the second time, or when I tried to develop a product around it, I realized that we needed to do something that was wall preserving, that made it easy for people to elevate a sub, and if they wanted to, decide to take it down, or move to another apartment, or move to a different room, or change the sub, and make it easy to actually put the sub up and put the sub down, bring the sub down, just like you would hang a picture on the wall. So CI, of course, is a little bit more commitment, both for the listener and also for the people that they cohabitate with. But with the 16 Works product, it's completely wall preserving. So it should have no impact on the landlord or the other people that you cohabitate with if you decide to elevate your subs and decide to take them down or move them to a different location. Really simple to do. In fact, we can talk about props. So what happens when you move the sub and you have some holes in your wall, all you need is some of this stuff. I like the pink because when you put it in the holes, it's pink, and then when it dries, it's white. If you have white walls, you may not even need to paint after that. But this product only leaves 6 very, very small, almost pinholes in your wall, and that's specifically because of the fasteners that we use. So a lot of time was spent on the engineering side. Actually, it's crazy how in depth you can get in the world of fasteners or screws, as we like to call them.
So does it go on the ceiling or the wall or either? Like, I love this idea because if you're doing CI and you don't like it once it's done and you want to move it, you can't do
Yeah,
that.
you can't do
So
that.
this
Yeah.
really solves that problem.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yep. Yep. And we want to work with, I think it's a great toolkit or something to have in the toolbox for CI professionals that when they go out and they try to work with a client's home, that they can, experiment with locations, both from a sonic perspective and maybe from an aesthetic perspective. And who knows, maybe in the end they decide to do some on-wall solutions versus in-wall. And, we have some of these things available to us for bookshelf speakers, but if you go on Amazon and you try to buy a wall mount for a bookshelf speaker, it's not going to hold a 200-pound sub. And,
what's the weight limit on this?
So in one of my videos on Facebook and Instagram, I have myself I'm a boat owner. I love boating, and I have my anchor chain, which is about 30 feet long, and myself hanging from one of these on the wall. So I'm about 157 pounds, maybe 158 today. And yeah, no problem. The logic here is we're using the stud work. So 93% of homes in the US are wood framed. And one of the real opportunities here is to leverage the existing infrastructure that you already have more than likely in your home. It can also work with masonry, and I can provide a masonry kit. But again, by and large, over 90% of homes are wood framed. So the company's called 16 Works for a reason, because stud work are normally done what's called 16 on center. So the distance between stud A and stud B is 16 inches exactly. And so we designed the product to be, sorry, reaching over here, some more props. This is an example of an unfinished piece, but this is 16 inches across on the straight edge, and that goes right into the stud work. In fact, I got a pillow down here. I'm just dropping props as I use them today. I promise I won't drop my iPhone. That happened already. So yeah, here's the GRK fasteners that we're using to attach what I call the long board, which is what I just threw to the ground, to the wall, to the studs. These are 4 inches long, and again, they're very small. This is less than 1/8 of an inch hole, and it's very difficult to find fasteners that are 4 inches long that are that small. And it's interesting. I tell people in the instructions, you don't need to tighten these because it's actually the surface area in the threads that creates the bond, the synergy, the coherence between both the 16 Works product and your sub. And it's really not very different than when we put spikes under our speakers and we put them on the floor. Almost all of us know what that concept is, and we adhere by it. But what we're trying to do here is create almost a structural bond between the sub and the stud work. And
so this is mainly going on a wall, right? Not a ceiling.
Only on a wall. Yeah, it's only vertical hanging.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, there's no way to hang this from a ceiling.
So how do you connect the subwoofer to the wall?
Yeah, that's what I'm showing you right here. So this is what I call a gravity grip. It's a version of a French cleat, which is a very secure way of mounting something on a wall. But in this case, I can't use a French cleat because we have to deal with the cables. There's really no such thing as a wireless subwoofer if you think about it. All subwoofers need power. So whether it's working on Wi-Fi or you have a physical connection, a low-level connection from your amplifier, or it's a passive sub with a high-level connection, also from an amplifier. I should say the first case would be from a preamplifier. Either way, you need to plug the sub into something. And so part of the kit, more props for you, Lenny, is I include this really nice sleeving that wraps around. It's an expandable sleeving made by WireCare. It's a really, really good product. I include 15 feet of this in the kit, and that can be used to kind of make a more aesthetic presentation of whatever cables are hanging down from the sub. And again, this sub is mounted on the ceiling, but part of the design is to actually mount the subs both at shoulder height and at the ceiling. In fact, my big contribution to the engineering here is another prop I'm going to show you. But it's a simple algorithm. It's really just a tic-tac-toe exercise. to help you sit in your living room and say, okay, where do I want to put my subs? And the design or the concept really is to have 3 subs, one on the floor, one at shoulder height, and one up or near the ceiling. And I get to tell my Expona story now. So I went to talk to Rel when I was at Expona, wonderful room, great bunch of people. And I told them I was going to elevate the T0, which I happen to own a T0. And they said, how are you going to do that? It's a downward firing sub. It's designed to go on the floor. And of course, as we talked earlier in our conversation, we know that bass frequencies don't reach our ears directly. They only reach our ears after bouncing off a boundary. And so they said, how are you going to put it? How are you going to elevate it? Well, I can elevate it near the ceiling. I can't elevate it at shoulder height very well because of the way the feet are constructed, but I can elevate it using 16 works up near the ceiling, and it's now firing into a boundary. It just happens to be the ceiling instead of the floor. So I've installed this gravity grip on the back of the rail sub. This is what it looks like. There are 4 simple holes. I am talking to a group of manufacturers after Expona to try to get basically a standard approach to this screw alignment. It's really similar to what we talk about with a rack-mounted amplifier. There's a standard measurement that the industry has adopted to making a piece of audio equipment rack mountable. And this is the same kind of standard I could work with the subwoofer manufacturers on. These are just 4 screws that are 1 inch apart. So it's just 3 inches on the edge of a sub. And, just like you would normally have feet that would go into a speaker or a sub, this could be inserts that are ready for you to install your gravity grip, at which point you can then hang it on the wall like I've hung this rail on the wall. I've also show you, well, I'm going to drop this up. There you go. So this rail, I mean, it just comes right off. It's that simple to get on and off the gravity grip. And again, I just routed the wires right through the back.
Puzzled. This is like just kind of blowing my mind a little bit. So I'm trying to take this all in. So
Sure.
you just slide that back on there and then it just stays?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called a gravity grip because the force of gravity is just holding. It's a French cleat concept. So gravity itself is holding the sub on this board. So I chose red cedar for a reason. In fact, now I get to show you some more props. Because I am an engineer, I tried a lot of different materials when I started this project, both for aesthetic reasons and for sonic reasons. I thought, okay, maybe aluminum is the best design. And here's a prototype that I crafted. I cast out of aluminum, actually. Didn't like aluminum very much because it makes a lot of noise. So didn't use aluminum. Also tried 3D printing approaches with some different designs. Also tried acetate and fiberglass. But yeah, ended up back with wood and chose red cedar for a very simple reason. It's kind of a medium hardness wood. So it's not as soft as a balsa or a pine, and it's not as hard to work with and scratch. So we don't want to scratch the sub that we place on the when we hang it like this. So red cedar, it's just a perfect wood, and it's very commonly used as the top board on guitars. It's theoretically a nice sonic performance, but I'm not going to try to say that this board per se has a sound. What has a sound is your room, and that's what's so important when it comes to low frequency response is to try to energize the room in an asymmetric way, so that wherever you happen to be standing or sitting, the bass waves that are canceled out from either your main speakers or from your sub on the floor are replaced by a sub in a different location. Because there is no doubt at all locations in a room, all locations, length, width, and height, no matter where you are, whether you're floating up 10 feet in the ceiling like me, or you're down on the floor, or you're sitting in your listening chair, all locations in the room have different bass frequencies that are null, that are canceled because of the reflection behavior. If you're only using 1 or 2 speakers in your sound system, or in this case, a single sub. And when I say a single sub, for a lot of low frequencies, you're only hearing them from the sub because your mains won't go that deep. So adding a single sub really does not solve the low frequency problem. And again, we know this. Almost many 2-channel music lovers have struggled with a single sub approach. And the great news is the research is there, and it's very easy to try now to elevate subs and understand and experience what a much flatter low frequency response feels and sounds like, because there is a tactile experience that happens with low frequencies that's very different from high frequencies and mids. And that tactile experience, that bass impact that we sometimes talk about, is what's so astonishing when you have a multiple sub configuration that resolves these nulls that you have been so used to.
So it's funny because I use raw subs and I use a pair of them, right?
Yes.
And have the raw guys seen this up on the wall yet?
Um, no, they didn't. Maybe they'll see it from this podcast. I hope they
Yeah,
do. There is a mindset around stereo symmetrical subs. And I think this product is supporting different points of view. Again, the Trinoff project, a product that we talked about earlier, it's not a project, it's a product. It's a fantastic product. They make hardware and software-based solution, again, a DSP approach to resolving room modes or standing waves, whatever the word is that we want to use to describe it. I call it nulls just to make it simple. But it's just like a noise canceling headphone, actually, right? When a noise canceling headphone is just reversing the period of the external sound, so that when you hear it, it's reversed, right? It's the sine cosine from our high school math days, right? So that's all that's happening with noise canceling headphones, and the same thing is happening with bass sound waves that bounce off your walls. And if you don't replace those canceled waves with some waves that are not canceled, you will not hear that bass frequency wherever you're at. Anyway, what I was saying is that Trinoff also discusses a symmetrical versus an asymmetrical approach and has different algorithms to adapt to that. Again, this product is really also a great fit for that kind of an installation, especially to help a consumer or a client test the system before they go full built wall. Built-in subs for a wall are large, Lenny. I think you know already. It's not a small decision to put a sub in a wall. I will advocate that a final end game for a lot of music lovers might be a CI installation of multiple subs, but for a two-channel system. And then you can also do a ceiling, because most ceilings are also wood framed as well. So there are definitely companies really well known and companies that make wonderful products, CI products, custom installation products for people who don't know the terminology, that will go in between the ceiling studs or the floor studs on the floor between you and the floor above you. And again, an end game installation might be a ceiling, in wall or in ceiling sub, and an in wall sub. And again, there are different lines of thought, whether or not those subs should be symmetrically placed or whether those subs should be asymmetrical. My personal preference is an asymmetrical arrangement. So again, the prop that I threw on the floor, which can be downloaded on my GitHub or from my website, makes it very easy, like a tic-tac-toe approach, to visualize where to put subs so that they are asymmetrical, so that they are not occupying the same vertical or horizontal plane in all three dimensions in your room. And that sounds complicated, but it's actually really simple with that document that I showed you earlier. In the kit, just to help people out, I do not provide the ladder, Lenny. You have to provide your own ladder. But these screws are also featuring what's called a star bit, and not everyone might have one of these. Most people have a screwdriver or something in their tool drawer, but I do provide, and it sounds amazing, but you can actually tighten these screws with your fingers using this tool. I also provide a bit in the kit so that in case you have a drill or a hex screwdriver, you can slot this bit in there and install all the screws that you need to install with these tools.
So Is this typically, you know, I saw you had the diagram where you had three subs, one on the ground, one like mid level, and one up top. Would these typically be on the same side of the room? Would they maybe be going diagonal across the front of the room? Is it just room dependent completely?
So what we're talking about here is asymmetrical. So in this case, if you divide the room into planes, and the algorithm that I developed, and again, it's a free open source algorithm. No one, you have to pay anything. You just download the PDF file and kind of imagine it, or visualize your room uh, uh, as if it were a box. Obviously, people's rooms are not always boxes, but just to make it simple, imagine the listening room as a cube. And so if you divide the room into three vertical layers, your three, I should say, three layers across, three layers in the width, and three layers from floors, shoulder height, and ceiling. You want to place one sub in each of the three so that it's not occupying the same layer as another sub. Or I should say it a different way, that all the layers have at least one sub in them. So it means that if you've got a sub on the floor, that plane in your room, that floor plane, is covered. You've got a sub on that plane. But you don't have a sub in your ceiling plane, and you don't have a sub in your shoulder height plane. So you need, again, these two more subs. But now you've got a problem. If you place them all in a line, you don't have your left plane or your right plane covered. And then also there's the planes, front to back in your room as well.
When you connect it to the subwoofer, do you have to drill holes into the subwoofer?
Yes, at this point in time, that's what I showed you on that subwoofer. So there are the four holes that are an inch apart, and those are attached with the fasteners that we provide. Again, using your hand. On the subwoofer I dropped earlier, I had wanted to show that I did a demonstration of putting the holes into the sub and using the pink material to fill the holes, and then using some black paint to cover up the holes, and you really can't tell that it ever happened. I don't believe this will affect, obviously, the sonic performance of the sub. It doesn't affect it at all, because if you imagine what's happening on this Rel T0, we're going into the corner where the two pieces of wood fit together. And so there's no impact on the structural integrity of the subwoofer. It's completely fine. And it's, again, no difference than having holes in the bottom of your speakers that would have spikes that go into them. And that's where I said earlier in the conversation, I would love to collaborate with the manufacturers to, just agree on a standard so that those holes could be pre-drilled in the subs before they're shipped to you, so that if you decide to elevate your subs either with 16 Works or with furniture from another company that provides furniture to elevate subs. At this point, we are the world's only company that does this, as far as I know. But if everyone could agree on that standard, it could preserve the subs better. Yeah, fewer holes. Let's say that.
That's amazing. It's absolutely a new concept for me. I'm interested. I can't wait to kind of want to show the Rel guys this and see what they think about their subwoofer up on the wall. I love it. I love it. It's amazing. Hopefully you can figure something out for building it into the sub and everything, and that's pretty cool. It's a unique product. That's for sure very interesting. Thanks for joining me on a ladder today.
Yeah, no problem. It's great to be with you, and I really appreciate your podcast. Thank you to Exponent. We'll be back next year. I was so excited to get featured in the PS Audio blog post, and this is another highlight. So let's see where things go from here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me. And hey, for the Exponent Audio Insider podcast for Lenny Florentine, Stephen from 16 Works, we will see you guys in the next one.